Have a seat. So, what's been going on while I've been gone? It is wonderful to be home. It is wonderful to be at the University of Chicago. It is wonderful to be on the south side of Chicago. And it is wonderful to be with these young people here. And what I want to do is just maybe speak very briefly at the top about why we're here. And then I want to spend most of the time that we're together hearing from these remarkable young people who are, I think, representative of some amazing young people who are in the audience as well. I was telling these guys that it was a little over 30 years ago that I came to Chicago. I was 25 years old, and I had gotten out of college filled with idealism and absolutely certain that somehow I was going to change the world. But I had no idea how or where or what I was going to be doing. And so I worked first to pay off some student loans. And then I went to work at the city colleges in New York on their Harlem campus with some student organizing. And then there were a group of churches out on the south side who had come together to try to deal with the steel plants that had closed in the area and the economic devastation that had been taking place, but also the racial tensions and turnover that was happening in these communities. And so they had formed an organization. They hired me as what was called a community organizer. And I did not really know what that meant or how to do it. But I accepted the job. And for the next 3 years, I lived right here in Hyde Park, but I worked further south in communities like Roseland and Auburn Gresham and Ogdale Gardens and West Pullman. Working class neighborhoods, many of which had changed rapidly from white to black in the late 60s, 70s, and full of wonderful people who were proud of their communities, proud of the steps they had taken to try to move into the middle class, but were also worried about their futures because in some cases their kids weren't doing as well as they had. In some cases, these communities had been badly neglected for a very long time. The distribution of city services were unequal. Schools were underfunded. There was a lack of opportunity. And for 3 years, I tried to do something about it. And I am the first to acknowledge that I did not set the world on fire, nor did I transform these communities in any significant way, although we did some good things. But it did change me. This community gave me a lot more than I was able to give in return, because this community taught me that ordinary people, when working together, can do extraordinary things. This community taught me that everybody has a story to tell that is important. This experience taught me that beneath the surface differences of people, that there were common hopes and common dreams and common aspirations, common values that stitched us together as Americans. And so even though I, after 3 years, left for law school.
Hi guys, thanks for watching Fox 5 Live. Just jumping in here to intro what you're watching. I'm joined by reporter Tom Fitzgerald, who is in-house. We also have the 420 pot, the smoke-in that's happening on Capitol Hill. We're going to bring you that later if there is some developments there. But for now, this is former President Obama's first engagement after presidency, right?
They billed it as his first speech, but in all reality, this really isn't a speech. President Obama is going to be establishing the Barack H. Obama Presidential Library on the campus of the University of Chicago in Chicago. Now, years ago, Obama was a law professor, a lecturer at the University of Chicago. So the work so far as getting the Presidential Library established there began before he left office. They're not starting from scratch here, but this is going to be part of a series of events over the next couple of years as he continues his fundraising efforts to establish that Presidential Library. So they're doing this right now.
Okay, we'll jump right back in here and not leave you guys hanging. Here's former President Obama.
Is that although there are all kinds of issues that I care about and all kinds of issues that I intend to work on, the single most important thing I can do is to help in any way I can prepare the next generation of leadership to take up the baton and to take their own crack at changing the world. Because the one thing that I'm absolutely convinced of is that, yes, we confront a whole range of challenges, from economic inequality and lack of opportunity to a criminal justice system that too often is skewed in ways that are unproductive, to climate change, to issues related to violence. All those problems are serious, they're daunting, but they're not insoluble. What is preventing us from tackling them and making more progress really has to do with our politics and our civic life. It has to do with the fact that because of things like political gerrymandering, our parties have moved further and further apart, and it's harder and harder to find common ground. Because of money in politics, special interests dominate the debates in Washington in ways that don't match up with what the broad majority of Americans feel. Because of changes in the media, we now have a situation in which everybody's listening to people who already agree with them and are further and further reinforcing their own realities to the neglect of a common reality that allows us to have a healthy debate and then try to find common ground and actually move solutions forward. And so, when I said in 2004 that there were no red states or blue states, they're the United States of America, that was an aspirational comment, but I think it's, and it's one, by the way, that I still believe, in the sense that when you talk to individuals one-on-one, there's a lot more that people have in common than divides them. But obviously it's not true when it comes to our politics and our civic life. And maybe more pernicious is the fact that people just aren't involved. They get cynical and they give up. And as a consequence, we have some of the lowest voting rates of any advanced democracy, and low participation rates then translate into a further gap between who's governing us and what we believe. The only folks who are going to be able to solve that problem are going to be young people, the next generation. And I have been encouraged everywhere I go in the United States, but also everywhere around the world, to see how sharp and astute and tolerant and thoughtful and entrepreneurial our young people are. A lot more sophisticated than I was at their age. And so the question then becomes, what are the ways in which we can create pathways for them to take leadership, for them to get involved? Are there ways in which we can knock down some of the barriers that are discouraging young people about a life of service? And if there are, I want to work with them to knock down those barriers and to get this next generation in, just to accelerate their move towards leadership. Because if that happens, I think we're going to be just fine. And I end up being incredibly optimistic. So, with that, what I'd like to do is to have our panelists here today each tell us a little bit about themselves. And what I've asked them ahead of time, and I did give them the question ahead of time, I asked them to describe for me what it is that they see among their peers that they think discourages voting, participation, paying attention to some of the issues, getting involved. Or do they have some immediate suggestions of the kinds of things that would get young people more involved and engaged and discover their voices? Once we've gone through the entire panel, then we're just going to open it up and we're going to see how it works. And hopefully it will be interesting. I'll find it interesting. Hopefully you find it interesting. All right? So we're going to start with Kelsey.
Well, thank you, Mr. President, and good morning, everyone. It is an absolute honor to be here with you all. My name is Kelsey. I'm a senior at Loyola University of Chicago, where I've spent the last 4 years studying marketing with minors in sociology and leadership studies. I've had the pleasure of being very involved on Loyola's campus with a number of different things going on. I'm looking forward to graduating in less than 2 weeks and pursuing my master's in higher education and student affairs. And I think to answer your question, my passion for working with college students does stem from the ability to work with activists and to work with community engagement, and really understanding that college students during that transformative time is the opportunity for students to learn about these important issues and really find their voice. Understanding that we can't just get discouraged when something doesn't go our way.
All right, Fitz, as we go into sort of this Q&A with some of the young students. Yeah. So short little thing there.
Yeah, I don't get the sense this is going to be like a grand policy speech, but it was interesting. What's interesting about this is the first time we've heard him be reflective about his presidency, because he's really been on vacation.
I know.
Whether he's in Tahiti or whether he's been, off in different far-flung parts of the globe, we've not really heard from him for the past, nearly 100 days now since he left office. Right off the top, it was very interesting. One of his first comments went back to one of the very first moments we ever heard from then State Senator Barack Obama. Here he is in Chicago, Illinois today, and he reached back and he referenced his keynote address for then Senator John Kerry. And, that was when Barack Obama was flung onto the national stage. That stated about how there were no red states, there were no blue states, there were only the United States. Well, now here's former President Obama now, 15 years later, almost, saying that he was wrong about that, that he didn't quite get there. So this will kind of be interesting to see if he continues to kind of do this kind of autopsy on his presidency, the difference between where he thought he was going, where he wound up, and how much of what he thought that he could do that he got into office ultimately wasn't achievable. One of the things he also said was that one of the reasons that's not achievable is because too many people are talking to only people who they agree with. So if you have conservatives talking to conservatives, if you have liberals talking to liberals, there's not going to be any cross-sectional ability to kind of get consensus, which is where all of the deals are made. Now, there's a school of thought here in D.C. that's one of the reasons some of the Democrats suffered such heavy losses. There's just too much deal-making in this city. The Republicans now control the government, so we'll be able to see now how they are able to kind of move forward with their agenda. But, there you had President Obama, who came into office himself, Democratic White House, Democratic Senate, Democratic House.
Exactly.
They ran into trouble, and they were not able to advance their agenda.
Yeah. So there we go, little intro. So Fitz is on his way to cover something else for today.
Yeah, I got some other things to do.
Working on the Capitol Hill. So he's out of here, but we wanted to grab him before he had to go. So we're going to bring it back in here to former President Obama, talking to these young people.
It'll also be interesting to see if Barack Obama ever puts a tie on again.
Oh my gosh,
because every time he's
casual.
appeared, he doesn't wear one of these things anymore.
Yeah.
And I fully endorse that. this
Yeah.
artificial piece of material that we string around our necks.
We've seen some cool like footage of him on vacation with Michelle and taking pictures and being a normal dude.
On David Gevin's yacht. in
Yeah,
Tahiti.
yeah, I did see that. Post presidency. So, all right, so we're gonna let Fitz go
All right.
to his thing, but bye guys. Say goodbye to Fitz.
Bye.
Thanks.
Goodbye, Fitz.
We're gonna jump back into this little panel with the young students from Loyola and University of Chicago, and then over to some other news when we have it for you. Thanks for watching.
Peace and blessings, y'all. My name is Harish Patel, and I live on the northwest side of Chicago. I arrived as a proud immigrant around the age of 14 with my mom and my sister from Gujarat, India, and attended public schools and then went to University of Illinois, Chicago, both for my undergraduate studies and for my master's in urban planning and policy. After graduating, I did become an organizer with somebody in the audience that I want to point out, Rami Nashibi, who's been a mentor of mine. That experience sort of led me to run for office, and most recently, now I work for New America Chicago, and I'm the deputy director here in Chicago, where we sort of do what we're doing today. We infuse new ideas, new voices in public policy conversation. So I'm really looking forward to this.
Fantastic. Excellent. All right, so as you can see, we have an extraordinary group here of sharp young people. But you'd also notice that they kind of avoided my questions. So, but that's good, because it tees up the next segment. And look, in the presidential election, you have maybe half of your peers voting. In midterm elections, about a third of your peers vote. I suspect that if you ask a lot of young people about a wide range of issues, regardless of where they sit ideologically, they would say, yeah, I'm very concerned about the economy, I'm very concerned about foreign policy, I'm very concerned about this or that or the other. But a lot of them feel as if their involvement would not make a difference. It's not worth their time. And in fact, they're...
All right, guys, thanks for watching. You're seeing President Obama, or former President Obama, here live in Chicago at this sort of small gathering speaking engagement of sorts at the University of Chicago. His first visit back to Chicago since his presidency, and his first speaking engagement as well since leaving the presidency. But also concurrently, we have going on pot demonstrators. They are back on Capitol Hill. And I want to bring you that footage here. We have one of our photogs there getting some live pictures of their speeches and seeing if anything really happens, if people are going to get arrested possibly on the Capitol grounds today. Now, we were anticipating this from last week after the 420 live event that we put out on our Facebook and here on Fox 5 Live on YouTube. So I'm going to jump out of this Obama event. We'll keep an eye on that as well, but bring you over to Capitol Hill. Here is live what's happening there. Some pot demonstrators protesting the prohibition of cannabis right there on the Hill. Let's hear what they have to say.
I tried to overdose on opioids in 2011. I had bad insomnia and severe depression, and I lost who I was. I was a zombie walking around. I barely remember that time. And my medication was actually illegal in Spain, and I couldn't sleep, and I didn't want to turn to alcohol or more drugs. I was afraid to touch prescription drugs after that time. And I found someone to give me cannabis, and it was the first time after I built a tolerance to really feel the medicinal benefits. I found myself. Without therapy, because I didn't have health insurance, I brought myself out of that severe depression because I was smoking cannabis, because instead of taking Ambien to fall asleep and waking up a zombie until way in the afternoon, I smoked cannabis and I felt new again. I felt like I can get my grades back up, and I felt like a human being and who I really was. So that's why I fight now, and I fight so hard for cannabis, especially for my fellow veterans and soldiers who need access. to this. I was also arrested on Thursday for demonstrating my legal rights as a DC resident, gifting the gift of cannabis to congressional staffers that work hard for us, who take a lot of crap, you know, for the senators and congressmen who are afraid to show their faces in town halls. I wrote a piece last night. I haven't really had much time to reflect on my time. But I wrote a piece that I really want to share with you guys in the world, because this is a fight for everybody, and cannabis is a beautiful plant. It's not titled, like I said, I literally just wrote it, yeah. So here I go. Everyone says you have a story to tell, and I know that I have been through more than what any other 26-year-old has, yet I always will hesitate because someone has always been through something more. But this is my story. I've never quite belonged anywhere in this world, societal or cultural. I've always created my own, rejected constantly by everyone around me, feeling like an alien to everyone around me. But feeling like this has made me learn to be one with the universe, always seeking a peace of mind within myself and not others. I live by a single lion will triumph over 1,000 sheep. A single person of a courage will achieve more than 1,000 cowards. Living by this morality, standing up for the injustices and standing up to the unjust systems and institutions has become a second nature. I know that I've been through what I've been through to do my duty, to tell the stories of those who have had their voices silenced by systematic discrimination. Moving from city to city, from Las Vegas to Oakland to Chicago to DC, I lived in poverty. Deaths were outside of my door. Police discrimination against my age, skin, and queerness. We all witnessed the unlawful murders of Eric Garner, Rakia Boyd, Philandra Cashew, Sandra Bland, and thousands of others. These experiences awoke my consciousness to advocate for the black lives on the streets of Chicago, because black lives matter. The injustices for the black community has faced since the founding of this country has given me the mission to fight for the rights and the equity of all minorities in this country and legalize cannabis across this nation. How can a single plant that rises from the soil that Mother Earth needs to breathe and medicate thoroughly the human body, mind, heart, and soul be used to destroy one group of people? Because the white man needs social control and to grow their pockets so much to bring crack cocaine into the black communities, to legally poisoning our brothers, sisters, mothers, daughters.
And we're really there. Kind of like a lot of what we're saying.
All right, guys, I'm going to jump in for just a second. In the bottom right of your screen, you're going to see some footage that we have coming in from Dallas right now. Now, we don't have a lot of information, but there are early reports that police there are responding to an active shooter situation in an office building. We were seeing some aerials earlier. The early reports say that possibly up to 3 people were shot in an office building on the 10th floor of the office building is what the reports are saying. Now, once again, the information is not totally clear and we don't have a ton of information on it, but Dallas Fire and Rescue did confirm that 2 ambulances were on the scene there. We want to keep this here so you can watch it in case this blossoms into anything larger, but we'll keep you updated with more information as we have it. So now we're back to the Capitol Hill cannabis protests here. And if you remember, if you were watching last Thursday on 420, there was a demonstration outside the Capitol and they were handing out joints to anyone with a congressional ID. Now we have sort of a larger protest of sorts where we were told some of these activists are going to be smoking on federal property, which would warrant an arrest. Something that a lot of them claimed that they were ready to go through in support of their protest here. So we'll take a listen to some of their speeches. We have our live cam there, one of our photographers there, getting this coming at you live from Capitol Hill. And again, more information on the Dallas shooting as it comes in.
But today and every day forward, we will show that we the people will no longer take your shit in lies. Because we deserve better, we are better, we will work to be better, because it's time that we upset the setup. The system is rigged and I am not backing down. Upset the setup because it is time to choose country over party. Upset the setup because I will change myself, my community, my country, and the world for the better through my queer, brown-skinned, female lens. Upset the setup because I will do the work of the people every day. Upset the setup because this is my story and I deserve to be heard. Upset the setup because I am unafraid and I am unashamed. It is time to upset the setup. Thank you.
Okay, next up, that was Natalie DeLeon, D-E-L-I-O-N. Oh, sorry, E-O-N. I'm my bad. I'm sorry. D-E-L-E-O-N. Next up is Shell with POW 420.
I am here trying to...
Just so you guys are aware, who the man who just spoke, Adam Eidinger, he is the head of an organization called DCMJ, which is an advocacy group for marijuana use, for basically getting rid of the federal prohibition on marijuana, bringing it back to the states, and this group is also fighting to get marijuana in general removed from a list of controlled substances. They also said they want to push for district residents, so DC residents, to have the right to vote on whether or not pot can be legally purchased here in the city of Washington, D.C. So you're hearing from some activists and different advocates for this speak to their own personal experience, and I was expecting some of them to light up on federal property, so we're kind of going to wait to see if anything happens here during this protest on federal property.
It is slave labor. It is something that America should never stand for. It is something that we should be ashamed of. If it doesn't hurt anyone, then there should be no crime. We should not have people in jail. Our state should not be spending $30,000 to $50,000 per person to keep them incarcerated and charging you for the privilege. How do I know this? I've been in this movement a long time. You see my gray hair? I've been here since the 70s, since many of these people weren't even born. Unfortunately, my house has been raided. I've had dogs in my house. I've had my kids given to my methadone using husband because he had gone through the pill mill and got addicted to the opioids. And our government told me that my heroin addicted, nodding out husband was safer to drive with my children than I was. I have to do this. I have to speak for all those that are incarcerated. We have no choice. I have to come to my federal government because my state says, well, unless the feds do it, until the feds do it. We're being held hostage by the federal government. States' rights to medicate their citizens the way they deem fit should not be controlled by these people. My state says medical, my state's looking at recreational. I say social, because you know what? I smoke socially. I don't do it for just the heck of it. I have my card, and I want to be able to use it nationwide. I want to be able to go to visit my friends in other states and not...
All right, guys, looks like we might have some updates on this possible shooting down in Dallas. We're hearing from some people on the ground there. So I'm going to bring you down to Dallas just quickly here to see if we have anybody giving some live reports.
Look, yeah, we got that driving up. Is it shooters?
Are you ever scared when you have to come to things like that?
No.
I'm nervous now. Tell. I mean, she did.
That's till we find out what the deal is.
Yeah, right.
They wouldn't let us or you guys be here if it wasn't.
That serious.
We were like right there.
I'm feeding the stuff in. Are you seeing me?
Your last name is Boone?
Yeah. Okay. And I've already fed whatever I shot. Nooney's still shooting. And I'll do the live shot.
You guys are looking at our sister station reporter, our sister station KDFW, and she was just there with someone who perhaps was a witness or was around this office building. Looks like now they're switching to some aerials, so I don't have that report from someone on the ground. But if we do, we're going to bring you back there to get some eyewitness account of what exactly happened down in Dallas. Same information as we were being told earlier, a possible shooter situation in an office building. You can see the surrounding police presence there. We're hearing that it was on the 10th floor of an office building. 2 ambulances did respond. Lots of policemen involved here. So we're going to bring it back over to Chicago now, back to former President Obama's first speaking engagement since his presidency. I think this is proving to be a little bit interesting, and kind of cool to see him in his casual demeanor talking to some of these students at University of Chicago. So now over to Chicago, back to Dallas when we have some more information for you.
It's real.
PTA is a lot of work. Y'all have, you know.
I mean, in Connecticut, it is blood sport, but that's, you know, I think the message that something like that would send is, you know, she didn't need to do that.
Right.
She did that because the educational system and more broadly the community that was fostered in the town was important to her and something worth giving her time to and something worth, you know, going out and, because no one pays you to do this, and you take a great deal of flack. So I certainly honor that commitment. And I think, you know, in 8th grade, which was your first election, we, in social studies, were told...
Can I just say... I'm old. But please continue. In 8th grade. Go ahead.
In 8th grade, we were... All right, I'll pick a different age to No, we each at the beginning of the year picked a campaign to follow, you know, sort of through to fruition. And each week we did a report for our teacher on how the candidate had been featured in the news, any sort of polling information that we had accumulated. We never got them back, but we, you know, it was an interesting process in that it taught us to care about the news in a time when, you know, maybe that wasn't something that you went home and watched,
right.
And it was something that made you more cognizant of the issues. I was fortunate enough to go to high school in New Hampshire where we're pandered to immensely heavily, and even it's just part of the whole ethos that every 4 years they care, or that people care about what New Hampshire has to say. And I think that one of the things that is a shame in that process is that there is a group that is active every 4 years because they're influential, they're big in the towns they're from, but you said don't boo vote, but don't boo act might be more apt, because you have a lot of these people who engage with the process only every 4 years and then are sort of gone for the in-between period. Mm-hmm. And then you have some who, if you're brought up that way and you're brought up to believe that your opinion's going to count for something, then go on to do big things. I had a friend whom I went to high school with, and she's been from New Hampshire her whole life. She's, I think, 20 now, and she's a state rep. Because she ran for an open seat, and that's just how it goes up there. There's a commitment. In terms of being involved in politics, I was fortunate enough to take a year between high school and college, and I worked in Washington, D.C. in the Senate. And that's an eye-opening experience because it forces you to confront in a real way what you believe and why, and you gain a lot of information very, very quickly. I'm immensely grateful to Kelly Ayotte for the opportunity. And then, after coming here, that sort of changed my worldview. I thought I would come here and be an economist, like I think every first year believes at some level here. And that, coupled with my time at the Institute of Politics, which was a good structured force to show that there was a way, there were many, many venues for us to engage civically. Let me explore things like campaigning in Iowa. Now, as for being a Republican on a college campus, yesterday, NBC ran an article about this on their website, and it didn't say who we were, it just said the composition was one Republican and the rest were Democrats or progressives. And I had maybe 3 people send me the article and say, "Is it you?" And it is if you're watching. But
all right, guys, looks like we have a little bit of an update from Dallas. So down in the right corner of your screen, let's hear from this eyewitness, hopefully.
Had a shield in his hands, and he was bleeding profusely from the right of his temple. And it was coming all the way down to his hands. Not flowing out, but just kind of quite a bit of blood. And he had a big shield in front of him. He was facing this way, so basically facing south.
So you saw an injured police officer?
I did. Yes. And they asked us to get out, keep our hands up, make sure that we're not the perps or nobody. Every floor had a police officer, guns drawn, kind of waiting for something to happen.
What was going through your mind? Obviously very tense.
Well, it was kind of surreal. You don't really doesn't quite sink in until you actually get out of it. The adrenaline started pumping, and then I got my team out, said, you got to get out now. There's a bunch of people on the phone. I said, leave, you can't stay here.
You never saw him encountering anybody, any shooter or anything?
No, but they were all guns drawn. The guns were drawn, cocked, loaded at a 45-degree angle for the handgun, and then the AR-15s were kind of pointed down. And the guy who was bleeding had his AR-15 up and ready to shoot.
Thank you, man.
Sure.
Wow, so you guys are looking at live raw footage from our photog and reporter down at our sister station KDFW down in Dallas. Sounds like he witnessed two people with AR-15s, in the one pointed in the air, one not. He also referenced seeing a police officer bleeding. So that was an eyewitness account from this office building. Now, I was just reading our report that we did get out a written report. Our station down there said that 2 people reportedly were shot in this incident on Monday morning. It was around the 10 a.m. hour there in Texas. And this is some of the footage from our Sky 4 chopper down there with Fox Dallas. And not a lot of written information at this point, except for what we're hearing from eyewitnesses. So as we continue to see people on the ground giving some more information, we're going to bring you this there. So kind of a scary situation. The conditions of the people who were shot are unknown exactly, but we'll continue to monitor this throughout the morning as we have more information. I'm going to bring you back now to former President Obama in Chicago.
Over 80% of the vote, and the inverse was true for the president now. But I mean, and there's not understanding. We're not talking. It's not just that we're reading different news, but it's that we don't talk to each other anymore. And I think, it would be good. Civic engagement at some point will require a level of civility. I think there's a lot of problems with our politics.
That's great.
There's a lot of problems with our politics that begin at home. I think we blame intransigent politicians a lot for the failure of each of us to grasp each other well. I mean, so your mentor when you were a new senator, Dick Lugar.
Great guy.
Love that guy. And ultimately lost his primary for that reason.
Because he talked to me.
Yeah, because people couldn't stand to see their member, bridge a gap on a human level.
Yeah.
And I think that's sad. I think there's both an empathy gap, and also I think a lot of people see politics, especially in this generation, and they say, this is ugly, this is mean, this is something that you have, pretty experienced people doing. And, if the country's a ship and politicians are sailors, maybe the boat moves like a degree either way. But I think the lack of results stems from a lack of us understanding each other well.
Mm-hmm.
I think, Marco Rubio said it pretty well a couple months ago that you can't really run a country when half of it hates the other. And somehow we're going to have to find ways to bridge that and to meet people who aren't like us.
Good. Terrific. Rich, on this stage, other than me, I guess you're the other guy who's run for office.
The oldest.
Well, I wasn't going to say you're the oldest, but I was going to say you're the other guy who ran for office, and I know you lost, but I did too once, right here in this community.
I got some grade too.
Yeah, there you go. But what prompted you to run for office, which is a different kind of engagement, and what did you take from the experience? Did you feel discouraged by it? Did you feel like, okay, this was fun, or if it wasn't fun, then it was worth it, and you would encourage other young people to take their shot? Tell me a little bit about your thought process there.
Yeah, and for me, I mean, I want to sort of start with the first time I ever did something that is considered civically engaged. I was an immigrant, so I couldn't vote until after Iraq War had already started. But the first thing I ever thought I'm doing that's like for this country was actually protesting the Iraq War. because I felt passionately that we were in the wrong side of history there. I think you were also at that point on that side.
I agreed with you at the time.
But so I couldn't vote, but I felt like a lot of the times civic engagement in its sense gets stuck in the dynamic of voting or electoral engagement and doesn't always expand. I think we have to sort of expand it to maybe what your mother did, or being on a board of a nonprofit, or these are tough positions to have, or it's a lot of work there, and I think I would hope moving forward we're sort of thinking about civic engagement beyond voting. But to directly answer the question around why I went from protesting to working at a nonprofit and organizing to thinking about, oh, electoral politics is one of the many routes that I'm going to engage in. And that happened, for me, actually happened in 2010. It was after I've done organizing that I saw that a lot of the jargon that was used against us as young people at that time, I didn't understand. So that's why I went back to college and understood some public policy.
Just jumping in here, guys, to give you a brief update on the situation in the lower right of your screen in Dallas. We are reading that SWAT is still considering this scene as active, and 2 people have been reportedly shot inside this office building in Dallas.
I'm just saying, there are a lot more
chopper video of the scene here. You can see these aerials, and we're waiting for the reporter from our sister station down there to bring some more live raw hits from some people on the ground there who are giving eyewitness accounts of what exactly happened. Not a lot of information out, but again, just want to keep you updated on this shooter situation in Dallas as we have it live. Now, also live is what's behind my face right here. President Obama, former president, speaking in Chicago with some young people, some students from Loyola, Chicago, and the University of Chicago. This is happening at the University of Chicago itself. So he's being fun, being kind of fun-loving and joking around with some of these students, cracking a few jokes, and bringing them sort of into the conversation about community organizing and involvement. So we'll keep an eye on that. We'll also keep an eye on Dallas and bring you more breaking information. Thanks for watching.
I want them to, and most young people of color, to feel that they can literally do anything. So that was one of the major reasons. Also, Illinois has an establishment politics that is really old. Not old in age, but old in thinking. And there's a monopoly of power, money, ideas that only come from few families or sometimes a few zip codes. And I wanted to say that that's not how we should move forward.
Okay. Well, I think that's terrific. A couple of thoughts based on some of the things that folks have said. First of all, what you said, Harish, about there are a lot of different ways to engage, I think is important, because sometimes people think if you're not running for office or it's not election day, there's no other ways of getting involved. And the PTA is a perfect example of the kind of thing that we want to encourage. There are a bunch of writers out there and social scientists and thinkers that would argue that one of the problems that we have with our politics right now is that the mediating institutions, the unions, the churches, the PTA groups, the Rotary Club, a lot of the voluntary organizations that used to exist, black sororities and fraternities, and that used to bring people in together to then work on issues, that those have declined. And the statistics show that people are less likely to be involved with various organizations in their community than they used to be. And what that means is then people don't have some of the same habits of being together on a common project that they used to. We've become a more individualistic society. And that, I think, has some spillover effects when it comes to both political participation, but also in terms of empathy, because you're interacting with fewer people on a regular basis. The second thing, though, it has to do with how we get information. So I want to throw this out and see what people think. I think a lot of us who have been in politics for a while do see a change from 20 years ago, certainly 30 years ago, where it used to be everybody kind of had the same information, and we had different opinions about it, but there was a common baseline of facts, and that the internet in some ways has accelerated this sense of people having entirely separate conversations. And if this generation is getting all of its information through its phones, that you really don't have to confront people who have a different opinion or have a different experience or a different outlook. You know, if you're liberal, then you're on MSNBC, and conservative, you're on Fox News. Or you're reading Wall Street Journal, or you're reading the New York Times, or whatever your choices are. Or maybe you're just looking at cat videos, which is fine. One question I have for all of you is, how do you guys get your information about the news and what's happening out there? And are there ways in which you think we could do a better job of creating a common conversation now that you've got 600 cable stations and you've got all these different news outlets that basically are offering one set of opinions? And if there are two sets of opinions, then they're just yelling at each other, so you don't get a sense that there's actual conversation going on. And the internet's worse, right? It's become more and more polarized. How much do you think that affects how people think about issues, and are there ways that could be changed, given that most of your information, and certainly for the younger people coming up behind you even more, they're getting their information primarily off their phones? So, Ayana?
I think social media has its pros and its cons in situations like this. Mm-hmm. So, for instance, when it comes to gaining information about what's going on in the world, it's way faster on social media than it is on a newscast.
Right.
But on the other hand, it can be a downfall, because what if you're passing the wrong information, or the information isn't presented in a way it should be? So that causes a clash in our generation. And I think it should go back to the old school, which
no phones.
Right. I think phones, social media should be eliminated, because the younger wait. I think I should rephrase myself. I think when it comes to politics and important information that can influence younger generations, it should be organic. So politicians should actually reach out and actually physically talk to the community. So it can't be any misconception on the information being passed. Mm-hmm. Because social media, going to Twitter or Facebook, anybody can hack your social media page. That causes a lot of problems. And to actually go out to the community will feel more welcomed. And I think that goes back to actually getting involved, because to have somebody shake your hand and to actually look at you and talk to you, it's a more heartfelt feeling to actually listen to what that person has to say.
That's interesting.
If you guys are just joining us, you're watching former President Obama speak to young people. He's really engaging them here, too, talking about social media and communication and phone usage, cracking a few jokes, really getting too deep into the level of students and grad students here. This is the grad student who's speaking. But also I want to direct your attention to the bottom right of your screen. You're looking at our aerials footage in Dallas, Texas. This is our sister station, Fox 4 Dallas. We have a little bit of new information there in Dallas. I'm going to bring up this full screen for you here. Aerials of Dallas, Texas. A woman who worked inside the building did tell a reporter for Fox 4 Dallas down there that she was on the phone with a customer when she heard the gunshots. She said the shots happened as my boss was directing everyone to get in the corner and get down low. She said people started screaming. SWAT came in and told everybody to get out. They had guns pointed. Everybody came out of the office with their hands up and were directed to walk down 10 flights of stairs. So you're seeing this aerial footage here of the building. Not a lot of new information that we can bring you besides that little eyewitness quotation there, that account from a woman who was on the phone with a customer when everything happened. So we are hearing that 2 people have been shot inside this building at some point this morning in the 10 a.m. hour in Dallas, Texas. So this is a breaking situation, and we're going to continue to monitor it and bring you more information. We also, at the same time, have this cannabis protest that's going on live on Capitol Hill in the drizzling rain. This is happening right here in D.C. They are protesting the prohibition of cannabis, and of course you can see sort of that they are on federal property here outside the Capitol. I believe they're on federal property, or so they were saying that they would be, and we were told they might be smoking together, a 420 smoke-in of sorts, a protest. This activist group, DCMJ, leading the protest here, and people making speeches and whatnot. So we're going to bring you all 3 concurrent events as we have new information, and bring you whatever we think is interesting at the time. Thanks for sticking with us. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll leave it right here on Capitol Hill for just a second.
Who is the former board director of MassCAN. She's from Massachusetts.
Thank you. So, just a little bit about myself. My name is Rachel Ramon Donlin. Rachel Ramon is my first name. I am from Massachusetts, and my dad served in the United States military in Vietnam. He was in the demilitarized zone. He was exposed to Agent Orange, which my doctors believe caused a very rare genetic condition called Ehlers-Danlos. Ehlers-Danlos is similar to brittle bone disease in that it's a connective tissue disorder. Only my body, I have brittle everything. That includes my vascular system, my hollow organs, my reproductive organs, my heart, my lungs, everything, my skin. And so I've had to deal with a lot of pain in my life. And so cannabis has been a theme. By the time I was a year old, my parents were divorced over it. I can remember when I was 3 years old, incidences, all the way up through my teenage years. I struggled in school, and then I, found cannabis, and I ended up graduating from prep school. Then I had a child whose father didn't like the fact that I was using cannabis to help with some of the anxiety and pain of my medication. And so I stopped smoking because I wanted to respect his wishes, and he wanted to fight a custody battle, so he brought that up as an issue, and I failed a drug test for cannabis, which I believe in some states they don't even test for anymore in these kind of cases. And so I went for a hair strand test, and the hair strand test for the next 10 years came out clean. And that test obviously was a false positive, but I still did not get to see my son for a year and a half because of that. And it had nothing to do with DCF Protective Services. This was a custody battle. So then I started these experimental treatments as my son got a little older. I went through 4 years up at Mass General Hospital in Boston for experimental treatments, which were extremely painful. And cannabis helped take the edge off of that just a little bit, just enough to get me to keep going back every 3 weeks for those 4 years to go through these painful treatments. And guess what? It worked. I was in a wheelchair, and I'm not in a wheelchair anymore. And I feel, thank you. And
all right, guys, we're going to bring you back to a breaking situation in Dallas. If you're just joining us, our sister station Fox 4 there in Dallas has a little more information. They've been tweeting out some updated reports. So I'm going to bring you over there, and we're going to see this brief interview with an eyewitness. Take a look at this.
First thing you recall is what? You were working?
Yes, I hung up on a customer. I was on the phone with the customer. We heard shots, and at the same time the shots happened, my boss directed everybody to get in a corner and get down low.
What happened next?
SWAT people started screaming. SWAT came in and told us everybody to get out. They had guns pointed, and everybody had to come out of our office with our hands up and come down 10 flights of stairs.
Betty, thank you. I'm so glad you're okay.
Thank you.
So that was the information that we read to you earlier from the reports out of Fox 4 in Dallas. Still an unresolved shooting scene there. You can see that we're still getting aerials here, lots of police presence. Reports of 2 people being shot inside this office building. Not a lot of new information for you. We'll continue to monitor it. We still have former President Obama speaking in Chicago. I think it's been a fun, kind of interesting speech, a little speaking engagement for him. So I'm going to bring you back there while we continue to monitor the situation in Dallas.
And that gave me the ability to break through some of the assumptions that people might have otherwise had. And in some ways, Iowa was the same way. I'm traveling around the state, as you know from having worked there. It's retail politics. You're going door to door. You're just talking to people, and we didn't have a huge amount of money, particularly initially, for TV ads. So it was just meeting people, and that does change people's assumptions when they get a chance to know somebody directly. So part of what we're going to have to figure out is how do we create greater opportunities. Now that's true, between red parts of the state and blue parts of the state. It's true even within the city of Chicago. I was yesterday with a group of young men who are part of a program designed to give them opportunities and pathways away from violence and crime. And these are some young people from 18 to 24. All were African American except one who was Latino. Many of whom had already prison records and had done some pretty rough stuff. Several of whom had already been shot, in some cases multiple times. None of whom had grown up with fathers. Many of whom had effectively been orphaned when they were very young. And so this would be the stereotypical profile of somebody who has a good likelihood of shooting or getting shot here in Chicago as part of the violence that has been plaguing the city. And what was striking when you sat down with these guys was they're young people. And if you had listened to them talking, you would recognize them as not that different from any other young man 18 to 24. What was different was their circumstances. They had grown up, in some cases, in foster care, or their mother was a drug addict, and they had been neglected. And so even within the city boundaries, a lot of times we will characterize our neighbors as something entirely different than us, that we can't understand and that we're afraid of and that we can't communicate with, and political rhetoric reinforces that. And they need to be heard too, and because if the six of you had been in that conversation, you would have come away not saying, oh, these are some thugs or super predators that I can't relate to. You'd actually say, man, if I had gone through what they went through, I'm not sure how things would have worked out for me either. And that creation of empathy then promises a different kind of civic response and political response than the one that so often we have. So that hearing other people, I think, is vital. And the question is, are there ways in which we can create opportunities to do that for more young people earlier on, before the lines of division start hardening? But Tiffany, you were going to say something?
Yeah, so just to add on to this about you being in the community and what Ayanna said about meeting the officials, I actually met you before in high school.
Is this another story about how old I am?
No. No, but I was singing with Kenwood Academy Concert Choir.
Mm-hmm.
We were at a breakfast downtown. I actually walked up to one official and tapped him because I recognized him being on TV, and he just put his finger up to me and said, no, he can't talk to me right now. And then I saw you, and I tapped you, hi, Mr. Obama, can I please take a picture with you? And you said no. And I was like, what's going on. They say on TV they care about people, and then in person they don't want to talk to me. But you said, no, not until you tell me your name first. And you shook my hand.
Just saying.
And you shook my hand and you talked to me a little bit, and all of that helped inspire me too, that he's not just a face on TV. You know what Ayanna was saying, they may shake your hand in public, but then you don't feel connected.
Right.
So that helped me too, wanting to be involved and listen to what you had to say, because I did feel that you cared about someone, a little black girl from Chicago like me. And then going back to what Max was saying, in pharmacy school, they did show us different bills, and we actually went for pharmacy week and lobbied in Springfield. So the school, Chicago State, actually did instill in us how important it was to fight for our rights, because if I'm going to school to be a pharmacist, you never know, they may take away that I can't dispense drugs anymore, and I had no say in it. So I do think what Max was saying, as to bringing it into the schools, will be very beneficial.
Excellent. All right. Well, I suspect, I'm a little out of practice, so I didn't check to find out how long we were supposed to be here. But I'm having fun. Where's the staff person? How long are we supposed to be here? Huh? So what I was thinking is that I've been asking a lot of questions. I should give you guys an opportunity to ask me a couple of questions before time is up. So anybody want to take a shot? Well, no, not you. We're talking to young people, though, but it's great to see you. I didn't mean to imply that you're not young, but I'm just saying. Go ahead.
So I definitely have a question, and it's I've been working on this project with a Latino. It's called Latino Youth on the northwest side of Chicago, and we have been working on surveying day laborers on the corners where they search for work. And I started in September, and initially it was difficult because, again, I was never a day laborer. Right. I went with an organizer from Latino Union, so it definitely helped, a nice icebreaker. Right. He understood the dynamics of the corner. And after November, it was extremely difficult to talk to these men. And I already had conducted almost, let's say 20 surveys up until then, and then I continued until March. But between November and March, it was just the presence of me being out there with a clipboard
made them nervous.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And I was talking to them in Spanish. I was explaining why I'm there, but because of everything that was going on, it was almost like, okay, yeah, but you're just one person. So my question to you, Mr. President, is how could you bring these people, not like me, I want to engage with them, right, and I'm doing what I can, but how can I tell these men and women that they're to come out of the shadows, because they're already in the shadows, now they're in the shadows even further, and how can I tell them it's okay to tell me your working conditions and nothing's going to happen to you?
Well, you in some ways you already answered your own question. This is a matter of trust, and so for you to finish your research project, you're going to need somebody that they trust to introduce you to them. And one of the things that I learned as an organizer and then as a politician is your ability to create trust and relationships is the thing that makes all the difference in being able to have an impact. And that's hard to do in this current environment, but it's not impossible. So it may be their priest, it may be somebody that they've worked with that you know, whose legal status is less at risk. I think generally speaking, immigration is a good example of an issue that stirs up so much passion and sometimes misinformation that it's hard for us to have a good, healthy conversation about it. The interesting thing is, historically, when you look at surveys, the overwhelming majority of Americans believe that America is a nation of immigrants and that immigration has contributed to the wealth and prosperity and dynamism of the country. The majority of Americans also believe that immigration should be lawful and orderly, that it shouldn't be haphazard. And so sometimes they feel frustrated if they, if it is perceived that folks are breaking the rules.
All right, guys, you're watching Fox 5 Live. If you're just joining us, this is former President Obama speaking in Chicago, his first speaking engagement since holding the presidency, his first time back in Chicago. I'm actually going to switch gears for you really quickly and come back locally here to the DMV area. I don't know if you guys caught this earlier. Check out this video of a raging fire in Prince George's County. We got this earlier. It was up on our website and on Facebook. Quick info about this. It was College Park, Maryland, and it was a 5-alarm fire. It tore through upper floors of a 6-story apartment complex that was under construction there in Prince George's County. Now, this was College Park, so obviously right near the University of Maryland, and you could see these aerial images, just flames coming out, tons of smoke coming out of the roof of that building. Authorities said they believe the fire started on the 5th floor and then spread to the roof. And we have a lot of video that we got live earlier, these aerials, just of the smoke pouring out, covering this area in College Park. Now, in a few moments, we are going to be hearing from authorities there in College Parks. There's going to be a press conference live. We will bring that to you about what is next after this fire and what has happened. We do know that the University of Maryland has suspended classes due to the smoke volume, and so we're going to hear a little bit more about that. There were no injuries reported with this fire, and the cause of it is still under investigation, but we'll bring you more when we have that press conference. So it looks like President Obama is rounding out his speech in Chicago. I'm going to bring you back to Capitol
Thank you, Wayne. Reverend Billy, this is for the non-believers and believers alike.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you so much. I'd like to recite a special prayer that the believers and the non-believers need to share. The activists, the press people, and the brothers and sisters from the law enforcement community. Got 3 tribes here. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances, free speech, free press, free people, protest. Amen. Hallelujah. Amen. All right. A good press person, a high quality press person. Amen. A press person on your way to the Pulitzer Prize. You've got those 45 magical words as well memorized as Wayne Barrett and Jimmy Breslin did. You've got as memorized as Dr. King had it. And any good police person, anybody in the law enforcement community whose job it is to perform what goes on in that rotunda up there. You have got those 45 words in your soul. When you arrest us, you should be reciting those words in your mind. Amen. We have struggled for those words. We have died for those words. As citizens, we have been committed to those words. And I can't help but see right now that you've got those plastic handcuffs. I'm just a preacher. I'd like to suggest that if you think that you need to do what you were told to do by your captain, who was told to do it by his captain and his captain all the way up to Jeff KKK Sessions, if you think you must do it for your job, for your family, for your kids, all right, I'm a father. I know about that. But I want you to right now allow yourself to have a moment of doubt, a moment of creativity, maybe the kind of moment outside of what you're used to, outside of your traditional self, maybe just a little bit like the way we feel when we light up and listen to a little Jimi Hendrix. Amen. Amen. Let yourself have that new thought. Tell yourself, I'm going to go back to the United States Constitution, and I'm going to look at that again, and I'm not going to necessarily look at it through Jeff Sessions' eyes. Amen. Maybe I'll look at it through the eyes of the ancient religions in the United States who exercise their First Amendment rights with the use of cannabis. Maybe I'll look at what they're doing through the eyes of the mothers who sit in the hospitals, who try to take care of their sick children, and the people consigned to wheelchairs. Maybe I'll look at through their eyes, and maybe I'll make the decision that the expression of freedom, the free speech, has taken this form at this time. And these people cannot be more American. They cannot be better American citizens than to exercise their love and protection for their loved ones. Have that moment of doubt beneath your uniform, beneath your badge. You don't have to say it out loud. You don't have to change what you're about to do. Have that moment of thinking anew about our laws. Life, hallelujah. Life, hallelujah. This feels like a special moment. I'm so honored to come down from New York today to be with these people. And this is my country at its very best. I'm so proud to be here with you. Life, hallelujah. The trees, the air, the ground, the water. May we do you justice. May we defend the earth inside of ourselves. We're all life. We're all made of earth.
You can see there, if you're watching, lots of Capitol Police there on hand, getting ready, I think, to make a move if anything is to happen illegally. Now, remember, it is legal to possess less than 2 ounces of cannabis in D.C., but it is illegal to possess it on federal ground, or, of course, to smoke it on federal ground. So police are sort of lining this demonstration here, and we're hearing from different activists who have come out in the rainy day to protest the prohibition of cannabis here in the district. We still have former President Obama speaking at his engagement in Chicago, and shortly we're going to bring you the press conference about the big 5-alarm fire that billowed over apartment buildings and the university in College Park, Maryland earlier this morning. So we'll hear from authorities on that and sort of an update on that situation.
Greetings to one and all. In the name of His Imperial Majesty, Haile Selassie, the Most High Jah, straight from the lineage of King Solomon and Sheba. On this day, I say, We come in peace. In peace. There is no victim, so I see no crime.
Exactly.
Now I'm going to switch it up so you can understand me. It's time for cannabis to be freed. The knowledge is there that it can heal certain ailments in individuals' bodies. So if I cross an imaginary line, why is it that my ailment now mysteriously cannot be treated by cannabis due to laws and money and profit? If it's about life and the opportunity for individuals to have and sustain life and live the life that they were blessed by the Most High Jah to live without pain in one's body, without ailment, or to continue life. There are individuals that are dying that could be saved from this plant, but due to politicians and money, it's supposed to be about the people. It's supposed to be about the people. What is a dollar? The true definition of a dollar is a silver coin. So the paper money that is in our pocket, what is it? Change starts with us. We are here to start change, to be the change that we look to see in the world. Unity, faces of all colors, all races, all creeds. Life is life. And in that I say, thanks and praise to His Imperial Majesty Jah, Rastafari, Selassie, King Haile I. This is cannabis. I come here today to say that for too long we have held down cannabis. The knowledge is there. The knowledge is there. The knowledge is there. The time is now. With all of my brothers and sisters in peace, we come in peace. I do not consent to any searches or seizures. I do not have cannabis other than my sacrament that I am presenting here today, that I will partake of, because this is God's land. Land is land. We have respect to those individuals that go about protecting and serving as they've took an oath to do. So we would like you to uphold to your oath and protect us as we partake in our sacrament today. With the prayers being said, give thanks. I come in peace. Cannabis is peace. Cannabis is love. We are here to spread peace. We are here to spread love. These are clouds of peace and clouds of love. Give thanks.
Father God, speak life over this situation right now. Let these officers know that it could be their family, it could be their friends. We understand that there's higher powers that be, but we're not bringing any harm to you. Understand we can teach you how to medicate your wife. We can teach you how to medicate your niece, your nephew. In the name of Jesus, God, protect us right now. We're not bringing harm, we're raising awareness. This is awareness. Everyone medicates differently. This is my daughter's way of medicating. In the name of Jesus, bless us and protect us. Just oregano. Just protect us. Just protect him. Just protect him, Father.
This is my sacrifice.
Just protect
This is
him.
my sacrament.
Just
and my
protect him.
religion. I do not consent to any
protect him.
churches.
You are breaking DC federal law, federally approved law.
We speak life
Congress approved our cannabis use in the District of Virginia. We are not breaking any law.
This is my patriotic right to medicate how I choose, and I refuse to be addicted to my feelings. I refuse to be a part of this
Violation of district law.
This is a violation of my First Amendment rights.
Congress
It's a
approved our
violation of my
law.
First Amendment
Congress
rights.
approved our law. This is legal in the District of Columbia. Congress approved our law.
This is my sacrament. This is my sacrament. My sacrament to my Buddhist practice. To my Buddhist practice.
The powers that bleed.
And you guys can see as the arrests begin, the Capitol Police just came right on them right when they lit that joint. So obviously these protesters doing this for a reason, knowing what they're doing, expecting to get arrested. They're on federal ground. So the U.S. Capitol Police is invoking that federal law and making those arrests here. Lots of media, lots of people getting pictures here. And the protesters still standing their ground here. So just a moment, we're going to bring you over to the press conference to update you on the College Park, Maryland fire, the 5-alarm fire from earlier this morning. We'll keep it right here to take a look at this footage of the end, likely the end of this protest, ending in arrests on federal ground.
This is one nation. Laws don't change from state to state. Free DC. This is the federal district. We legalized here. Free DC. We love you, Adam. We love you, Adam. It's a human right. Viva Heidegger. Cannabis is a human right. Legalize marijuana now. Free DC. These politicians need to wake up! These politicians need to wake up and listen to the people! They're begging for it! Mothers are begging for it! Stop arresting people for cannabis!
Stay up on the sidewalk, sir. Up on the sidewalk. Up on the sidewalk. Up on the sidewalk. Fresh air on the grass. Up on the sidewalk. You guys need to folks, up on the sidewalk. I want to move though. Back on the grass. Back on the grass, folks.
Move back. Move back. Back up on all the way onto the grass where the press area is.
Now, the man that you just saw in the red cap, that was Adam Eidinger. He's one of the heads of DCMJ, this advocacy group that is leading this protest here, directed at getting lawmakers' attention. Essentially, they said last week when they handed out joints on the Congress grounds, on the Capitol steps area, a lot of lawmakers were on spring break. So here they're trying to be right there in their face, get their attention. You can hear him yelling out for in protest for what he believes about freeing DC and making marijuana legal, making it a federal right. So a little bit of drama here at the end of this protest with his intention, of course, of getting arrested. We were telling you last week that he has set up his rent to be paid and childcare for his 13-year-old daughter in the event that this did happen. Our photographer there is getting this live raw video that you see here, and we'll see how much longer we have this shot, and then we'll bring you over to College Park, Maryland.
You guys are heroes! You guys are amazing! You're fighting for our rights! Free DC! Free DC! Free DC! Free DC!
So I gotta tell you. I'm trying to see this. I felt intimidated.
Like I said, I've been in here having freedom games. Nobody can go across my road.
Go back up.
I'll say that way.
You need help?
Yeah, I'm gonna rotate the speaker. Speaker?
Is this as planned?
Hold on.
Oh, yeah, it's just as planned.
All right, Nick, you still got the cords over here. I got a poster I'm throwing in here.
Today you just witnessed Americans engaging in nonviolent civil disobedience. America has a very long history and a very proud history of people breaking the law in order to change the law. The war on drugs, specifically the war on cannabis, is ending. And it's people like the ones that are being arrested right now are the ones that are going to put the final nail in the coffin on the war on cannabis. Every day, thousands of Americans are going to jail for a plant that's safer than alcohol and tobacco. Members of Congress need to pass a law that removes cannabis from the Controlled Substances Act right now. Speaker Ryan needs to put a vote. He needs to get off his butt and pass a law that deschedules cannabis. The president talks about jobs, and we're talking about jobs too. Millions of jobs. Millions of jobs that have been created by farming cannabis, processing cannabis, and selling cannabis. Instead, you're putting people in jail for a harmless plant. This is not the way to make America great again. The way to make America great again is to do what our founding fathers did, and that's grow cannabis. George Washington grew cannabis. Thomas Jefferson grew cannabis. You know what? Going back all the way to 800 AD, Charlemagne required every single one of his royal estates, think Mar-a-Lago, right? But 800 AD, every single one of those estates to grow cannabis. Too many Americans are going to jail for this plant. And they don't need to. Now count up every single one of these officers here today. I have counted about 35 to 40 different officers getting paid about $25 to $30 an hour, I hope. Think how much money is being wasted by the federal government right now.
Right.
That money can be better spent serving the needs of Americans and protecting members of Congress. You are protecting members of Congress from a non-toxic plant that's killed no one.
All right, guys, if you're just joining us, you're catching what seems to perhaps maybe be the end or rounding out the end of this protest on Capitol Hill, pot protest. We saw some arrests being made, of course, lighting up on federal property. We're going to jump you over now to a press conference in College Park, Maryland, regarding the 5-alarm fire earlier this morning. So jumping over now to Maryland. It looks like this press conference has not really started yet, but we will be getting an update on this fire, which caused smoke to be everywhere along the grounds of University of Maryland and College Park in general. So now I think we're going to hear from Fire Chief himself.
Come on up, guys. Up behind. Good on. Is our mic turned on? I did not. You turned it on? Say a few words for us. Sure. Benjamin Barksdale, Benjamin Barksdale, Acting Fire Chief, Prince George's County Fire and EMS. Okay. Just to recap. Okay. All right. So this morning about 09:30 hours, we responded to a reported fire here in the building at the Berwyn House here. Units arrived to find heavy fire on the 5th, 6th floor. Building is under construction, and because it was under construction, still a lot of void spaces where the fire was able to get into and travel throughout the building. It went to 5 alarms with over 50 pieces of apparatus, over 200 firefighters. Right now, we just have 1 minor injury to a firefighter that has been transported for the minor injury. The senior home behind me has been evacuated. About 65 residents have been taken to the College Park Community Center. There has been no damage to their building other than a heavy odor of smoke. Some of them were having trouble breathing, so we moved them over to the community center for safe being there. Right now, as you can see, we still have active fire in the roof area. Our biggest challenge here has been access. As you can see that on the front side, where we had pretty good access with the ladder trucks, we were able to knock down all the fire. But once it got beyond that point, this is what we call a donut type construction, like a donut hole. There's a hole in the middle, and it backs up to a residential community. So it's been very difficult to get fire apparatus back in that area to get at a strategic vantage point to get water on the fire. So we've got units on the roof right now with large diameter hose, and our hope is to cut it off. While you may not be able to tell from the outside, but there are two buildings here. There's a 3-hour firewall that's in between them. So we're on the good side of the firewall, making a stand to try to keep the fire from coming to this side of the building.
You talked about a couple of things. This building is not yet complete, so it's really kind of at a vulnerable time. Talk about that. No sprinklers yet.
Right. So because it's still under construction, as I mentioned before, it still has a lot of void spaces where they're putting things together. The fire suppression system isn't fully operational. So, normally, we would hook up to the standpipe and the sprinklers and all that would be activated. But because the building was not occupied, none of that was in service at the time of the fire.
A lot of wood.
There's a lot of wood in this building. It's what we call a Type 5. Even though you see brick masonry on the outside, that's what we call a veneer. The structural components that hold the building up is wood. It's built on top of the first 2 stories is masonry, is concrete, and then they go above it with wood.
Now, air quality.
Can you talk about the vulnerability of buildings in this construction period? Before the sprinklers and the rest of it are in there, can you talk about how much of a problem this is for firefighters?
Well, we can see today how much of a problem it is that, once that fire gets in those void spaces and starts attacking those structural components, all that wood, it's very hard to catch up to it, especially if you don't have access, to get right up and get to the scene of the fire. Because it has started at the top and got into the roof. Now the roof and all the air handler, all the air conditioning units are starting to collapse. So we couldn't have crews on that top floor because now everything you see on that end has collapsed. And if there had been any firefighters in those areas, then, it'd have been a disaster.
University of Maryland decided to close.
Some collapsed, but are you there?
Yes, most of the roof of this part of the building behind me has collapsed, yes.
Are you concerned about collapse anywhere else at this point?
Actually throughout. So what you can't see, where all the smoke is rising on that far side, all of that is starting to come in as well.
And the initial call, do you know how you got that? And was it a construction worker that noticed something?
I do not know that at this time.
Air quality. Smoking. We've all felt it. University of Maryland decided to shut down. What do you say to the community downwind here? Just how dangerous is it?
I think if they close their windows, turn off their HVAC so that it doesn't draw the smoke in, they should be okay. Today it's not very hot, so we shouldn't have any issues as far as people being overcome with heat in their homes. So as long as they close their windows and doors and shut off their HVAC, they should be okay.
It's more complicated for the University of Maryland, such a large institution, and because we're talking about smoky classrooms and smelling it inside of their classrooms that they're doing.
Yeah, today with this type of weather system that we have, it's keeping the smoke, low. It's not able to, get way up into the atmosphere, so it's hanging low. So it is a problem. So it probably was best that they did, shut the university down, especially if anybody has any breathing problems or asthma or anything like that.
It's dangerous. When you get it 2 blocks away from here,
it can be, absolutely, yes.
Chief, what you explained about the donut and not being able to get back there, could you be more specific?
So in the middle is a courtyard area, and like I said, on the back side, it's all residential. There's no street access. Now, we do have a ladder truck back in there that did make it into someone's driveway and backyard there. We were able to get one there, and we've got a monitor flowing from another yard that's flowing water in, but there's no street access back there. So,
Any idea of a possible cause?
Not at this time. The fire investigation is on the scene. Once we get everything knocked down, they'll be able to get in there and see. But right now, no idea.
There were some people reporting the sound of explosions.
I didn't get any of that.
Thank you. All right, good luck.
I would say I'd like to thank all of our regional partners that are here, Montgomery County, Anne Arundel, DC, Northern Virginia, Howard. Like I said, we've got all of our regional partners here helping us with this, and we'll probably be here for several more hours. So.
How many?
Over 200. Over 200.
Our next update will be at 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock, same spot.
So that was Deputy Chief Prince George's Prince George's Fire Deputy Chief Barksdale, and then Mark Brady following up saying that the next update will be later at 4 o'clock. You can see two images here. I brought you down in the right-hand corner of your screen, but we'll bring it back to the current shot. That was the right-hand corner was earlier footage of this fire, and here it is now. So a little update there. You could hear him saying it was advisable for the university to shut down for the rest of the day. So more updates. Stay tuned to our Facebook and our website for more updates on this 5-alarm fire in Prince George's County. We're going to bring you over now to the White House press briefing room, where currently ongoing is the press briefing with Sean Spicer and some other guests as well who are speaking. So over now to the White House.
Very effective, and we will continue to use them to the maximum amount available by law.
Secretary, on the budget, is the border wall a deal breaker for the president, even to the point of a government shutdown?
I'm not going to comment on the specifics of that, but what I will say is I was in a meeting this morning with Director Mick Mulvaney and other senior people. The president is working hard to keep the government open and addressing various issues.
Secretary, can you tell us what these sanctions actually do? What is different today than was different yesterday before OFAC moved?
Well, the sanctions are enormously important. So by identifying 271 additional people, these sanctions, as you know, will both freeze assets if there's assets here and prevent U.S. entities from doing business, as well as these sanctions have enormous impact with all of our partners around the world who also work with us on these issues.
We're not doing any business with these people, are we, sir? We're not doing any business with these
As you know,
people.
the administration is trying to grapple with the Paris Climate Agreement and come to a decision on that. Where do you stand on it? Do you support staying in Paris or coming out?
Again, I would just comment that we're having discussions on that, and that's where I'll go on that.
Secretary, are you aware of any American companies doing business with those individuals that have sanctioned today?
Said last week there'd be a tax reform proposal released Wednesday.
He did indeed.
So
been widely reported.
Yeah. I imagine that surprised you a little bit. What can we expect?
Let me just first say, I've been working with the president for over the last year on his economic plan in regards to creating growth. The president is very determined that we can get to sustained economic growth of 3% or higher. We're working on tax reform, we're working on regulatory reform, we're looking on job creation, and this is something that on the tax side I've been meeting weekly with the House and the Senate on designing things, and we'll be coming out, as the president said, with more details on Wednesday.
Secretary, thank you very much. Along the lines of tax reform, I know the specifics of the broad details will be delivered on Wednesday, but without getting into the specifics, what does the middle class gain if there is a simplification but also a loss of deductions, whatever they might be? If we lose the deductions, how does that help the middle class?
Well, let me just say, we've been clear on what the president's objectives are for tax reform. Middle income tax cut, a priority of the president's. Simplification. The average American should be able to do their taxes on a large postcard. Business tax reform. We need to make business taxes competitive, and we expect with doing that, we will bring back trillions of dollars from offshore.
Secretary. Thank you, sir. I guess the question I have is to sort of bounce off of what John was asking about this announcement on Wednesday. It doesn't sound like we're going to get the finer details of what this tax reform package will entail. Is it a good idea to start talking about tax reform, something that you said can't be accomplished by August, when you don't have all the details?
Well, there'll be details that'll come out, and yes, I think it is important that we're talking about it, and we are going to move forward. I'll just take a couple more right there. Yes.
Can I just follow up on what Major was asking you? For those of us who are not completely clear about the 271 employees, are you suggesting by looking at these sanctions that there are U.S. companies, or they have holdings in the U.S., or they would be traveling or doing some sort of business that we're actually freezing or barring?
Again, I can't comment on the specifics of these sanctions beyond what we release, but I can assure you that when the U.S. puts out sanctions, they have impacts both here and throughout the world, and we wouldn't be doing this if we didn't think it is impactful. It's quite impactful. One more back there, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Would you
Yes.
say that simplification of the tax code or cuts would be the first priority? You've mentioned both the postcard
Both.
and closing the gap with growth, but which is first thing that we're going to hear about? on Wednesday?
Again, what I'd say, on the personal side, we're about a middle income tax cut and simplification. On the business side, we're about making them competitive. And this is the last one. Go ahead.
Can you say if the tax plan will be revenue neutral?
Again, what I've said before is the tax plan will pay for itself with economic growth. Thank you, everybody. Nice to see you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary and Ambassador Haley. I just want to kind of walk through what the rest of the day and the week, and then we'll get to some questions. As you know, this morning the president had a call with German Chancellor Merkel, who had extended a gracious invitation for the first daughter and assistant to the president, Ivanka Trump, to attend the W20 summit. Tomorrow, Ivanka will be in Berlin at the W20 participating in a panel that is entitled Inspiring Women, Scaling Up Women's Entrepreneurship. This follows the roundtable on vocational education and workforce development, issues that are central both to Ivanka and the Chancellor's agenda that they hosted here at the White House in March. While in Germany, Ivanka will also visit a school for interactive tour and discussion with students participating in the Apprentice program. In commemoration of Holocaust Remembrance Day, she will visit the memorial to the murdered Jews of Europe in Berlin. A readout of the President's and Chancellor Merkel's call should be out already. Following that call, the President spoke with Dr. Peggy Whitson, the commander of the International Space Station, via video teleconference. As I told you guys last week, Dr. Whitson, who is on her third extended stay aboard the International Space Station, breaks the record for the most space time of any American astronaut. The President was honored to celebrate this incredible achievement by Dr. Whitson and the American space program and discuss the exciting future of space exploration and space science, including how the Inspire Women Act, which the President recently signed, ensures that NASA continues recruiting women for important STEM-related jobs in aerospace. After that, as I mentioned at the top, the President had a working lunch with UN Ambassador Nikki Haley and the other ambassadors of the countries that are part of the UN Security Council. Under the President's leadership, America has once again taken a leadership role on the world stage, and our global partners have welcomed this renewal of American diplomacy. Later on this afternoon, the President will sign a proclamation on Holocaust Remembrance Day, part of the week-long Days of Remembrance, first held in 1979 and later established by Congress as our nation's commemoration of the Holocaust. Tomorrow, as every president since the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum opened in 1993, President Trump will participate in a Days of Remembrance commemoration. As he said during his video message to the delegates of the World Jewish Congress Plenary Assembly, the Trump administration is committed to stamping out prejudice and anti-Semitism everywhere it is found. Following the proclamation, the President will host a credential ceremony for newly appointed ambassadors. He will then have dinner with Senator and Mrs. McCain and Senator Lindsey Graham. Later this evening, the Vice President will return to Washington, where he's finished his time throughout the world. While in Hawaii today, the President will have lunch with U.S. troops at Joint Base Pearl Harbor Hickam and participate in an arrival ceremony and U.S. PACOM before boarding Air Force Two for the ride home to Washington. As we get closer to the President's 100th day in office, throughout the week, the White House is hosting briefings and events to provide several opportunities for many folks in the press to hear directly from the administration and our officials on what we've achieved in the first 100 days and what we're looking to continue to achieve on days 101, 102, 200, etc. Throughout the week, the President, cabinet officials, and senior White House staff will be talking about the President's agenda on national, local media, and various platforms. Finally, I wanted to acknowledge the distressing reports regarding American citizens coming out of the Ukraine and North Korea. We're deeply saddened by the death of a paramedic and United States citizen serving in the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe Special Monitoring Mission. We extend our deepest condolences to his family, friends, and loved ones, and wish his colleagues who are injured in the blast a quick and speedy recovery. We call on all parties to cooperate with the Special Monitoring Mission to allow it to fully investigate this incident. The tragic death of a staff member only serves to underline the urgent need for all sides, particularly the Russian-led separatist forces, to implement their commitments under the Minsk agreements. We are also aware of reports that a United States citizen was detained in North Korea over the weekend. The protection of United States citizens is one of our government's highest priorities. I would direct any further inquiries on this matter to the State Department. Also on North Korea, on Wednesday, the White House campus will play host to a briefing for all 100 U.S. senators on the subject. The briefers will be Secretary Tillerson and Mattis, Director Coates, and General Dunford. This is a Senate briefing convened by the Majority Leader, not a White House briefing. We are just serving as the location. For further questions, I would direct you to the Majority Leader's office and the office of the 4 briefers. With that, glad to take a few questions. Yep.
Talking about the budget, how committed is, if this was asked earlier, but can you talk about how committed the president is to having the border wall funded this week, or having some funding in that spending bill? And if it's not in there, will he sign it?
Well, again, those negotiations continue with House and Senate leadership. Obviously, the money for our military and our border security and wall have been part of that request, and that is something that those are the president's priorities heading in, with respect to the CR and keeping the government open. I think we feel very confident where we're headed, and I'm not going to get ahead of the negotiations that are ongoing. Director Mulvaney has been very, very deep in those discussions, and I expect there to be an announcement soon but I'm not going to start to take things on and off the table with respect to what the president may or may not do. Phil.
Yeah, Sean, just doubling up on that question there about the CR debate and the funding. Does he specifically expect there to be funding for the border wall, or would border security measures be enough to satisfy the president? And how do you differentiate between the two? For example, what could be funded in the CR that you could say is part of the wall, even if it's not explicitly
right? So there's obviously a lot of components to that. You've got fencing and drones, and I don't want to get ahead of those negotiations. They are ongoing, but the president's priorities have been very clear from the beginning.
It sounds, Sean, just to follow up, that are we backing off on the wall? Are we saying it is on the table?
No, we're saying that the president has made very clear that he's got 2 priorities in this continuing resolution. Number 1, the increase in funding for the military, and number 2, for our homeland and border security and the wall. But I'm not going to start to get into, we were having a negotiation with House and Senate leadership, and to prejudge where it ends up at this point would be, would not be prudent.
Okay,
Trey.
thanks, Sean. I have 2 questions for you. On the Syrian economic sanctions, how will the administration determine how effective they are?
Well, I think there's going to be a lot of ways, but I think first and foremost is to send a clear signal to make sure that they understand that we don't take their actions lightly. And that we want to do everything we can to have stability in the region. So I think there's going to be a lot of ways in terms of their behavior going forward that we'll know whether they're working. But I think, as the president has made clear, and Secretary Mnuchin just did, I think we have a lot of tools at our disposal to try to achieve an outcome that brings stability to that region.
And my second one on North Korea, the fact that a 3rd U.S. citizen has been detained by the regime in Pyongyang, does this make it more difficult for the president to negotiate through China to try to denuclearize North Korea?
No, I think China, and we noted it before, Ambassador Haley noted it in several interviews this morning, but China has been very, very helpful in this process and continues to be, and I think we hope to see a change in behavior, but it is a very positive sign, the level of engagement that China has enacted.
Is the Trump administration calling for the release of this U.S. citizen currently being detained?
Well, absolutely. I mean, we want to make sure that all of our citizens are protected and returned home, but the State Department is playing the lead on that. Amen.
Thanks, Sean. As you know, there's quite a bit of concern among Republicans on Capitol Hill about the federal deficit. When you roll out the tax plan on Wednesday, are you also going to include pay-fors in there? That is, those things that raise revenue as well as those things that are tax cuts, so that conservatives can be confident that this won't blow a hole in the deficit?
Yeah, I think we will have further details. I'm not going to get ahead of the president's rollout, but I'm not going to the level of specificity in terms of the pay-fors and the cost. We'll have to see it, how comfortable the president is. Jennifer.
Sean, can you tell us if the president is aware of the American pastor jailed in Turkey, and did he raise that with President Erdogan when he called Monday to congratulate him?
I'm not going to get into the specifics of the president's conversation. We're obviously aware of that action, and we're going to continue to work through the State Department on that. Jordan.
Thank you, Sean. Can you explain why President Trump didn't use the word genocide to refer to the killing of 1.5 million Armenians in his statement today?
Yeah, the statement that was put out is consistent with the statements that have been put out for at least several of the past administrations. So I think if you look back to the language that President Obama, President Bush, et cetera, have used, the language that the president used is consistent with all of that. Katie.
First, the border wall and the logistics of that. Secretary Kelly said he still expects construction to start this summer. There are still a few ranchers in Texas and Arizona who welcome the security but are skeptical of giving up family-owned land and their families for generations. So what is the White House message to them directly, and what can you guarantee that they'll be compensated?
I think we will do everything in accordance with the law. This has been an issue that has gone on several times as that issue has been raised over the last several years. And so we will do everything in accordance with the law with respect to the land that's needed for that. But again, the Homeland Security Secretary understands what's going to be needed, and we'll do surveys and the appropriate planning to make sure that we minimize that to the extent possible.
And then on the next question, on a different topic, the FBI and Justice Department last week arrested 2 doctors in Michigan for allegedly performing genital mutilation on a young 6 years old. It's the first case in the United States. What is White House reaction?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked before about pending investigations, and we don't comment on any pending investigations or actions by the Justice Department. Major.
Is 100 days, as the president said on Twitter, a ridiculous benchmark or an important one?
Well, I think obviously in the context of an entire administration, there is a lot that I think we feel very proud that we've done and taken care of. When you look at the immigration piece in particular, border crossings way down, the number of executive orders and pieces of legislation the president signed, I think we feel very proud of what we've been able to accomplish and fulfill the promises that he's made to the American people. But I think it's got to be kept in context. And I think there is sort of this artificial number that gets thrown out. So on one, well, I mean, the context is it's 100 days, and you have 4 years in your first term, and 8 years for 2 terms. That I think.
Trump introduced a contract with the American voter over 100
I
days.
understand, right. And so again, I think when you look at the number of pieces of legislation, the executive orders, business confidence, the place, the U.S.'s role in the world, there's a lot that we feel that a lot of accomplishments that have occurred, and we feel very good about what we've done as we head up to this first 100 days. But I think you're going to continue to see a lot of action and a lot of results going into the second 100 days, the third 100 days, all the way through.
In 100 days, there is no funding, explicit funding for the wall, and there's no health care reform or repeal of Obamacare. Would the president consider that, and would he invite his supporters to consider that a conspicuous failure based on the promises he made during the campaign?
Right. I think when you look at the totality of what we've accomplished on job creation, on immigration, on trade, that is unbelievable what he has been able to do. And so it's not, you can cherry pick any couple of things and say, okay, well, what about this or that? But I think when you look at it overall, in terms of the drop in border crossings, if you look at consumer confidence and the relationships that we've developed around the globe and the accomplishments this president's had on protecting the country, on bringing back jobs and starting, those have been unbelievably significant. And so to minimize that or to look and pick out 2 or 3 things, but I think, look, we're going to continue to push for healthcare reform. We feel very good about the direction that it's going in. It's been very positive. And I think that the construction of a wall is going to continue to be an area that moves forward. But all of that stuff is happening just as the president asked for and committed to doing. Some of it, has been a little slower, but mostly because of working through Congress and getting things done. But when you think about what he's started, he'll move forward on tax reform, healthcare, on immigration, on trade. It's been a hugely successful first 100 days.
And without the president necessarily describing it as a failure or not, would he say that he's learned something about the process and how long things take that he perhaps didn't appreciate as a candidate? Maybe he overpromised on the speed with which he'd achieve these things?
No, I, with all due respect, I think that when you look at the lists of things in each of the various areas that he's been able to do, I think he's very pleased.
I want to talk about some conspicuous campaign promises that rally after rally he
Right.
made and said, don't worry, it's going to happen.
Right, and I think on healthcare-
All I'm asking is, does he have a different awareness of how difficult those things are than he did as a candidate?
I'm sure that there are things that you learn in the job, but I think that he is very proud of what he has set out to do and the progress that we've made. And I think you're going to see healthcare get done, but it's going to get done right. And that in particular is something that we're continuing to work at. We can't make people vote, but we've made significant progress and moved the legislation forward and improved it greatly. And I think that we are going to see progress on that. Zeke.
Thanks, Sean. Two questions on two different topics. First, follow up on Eamon's and the other questions on the budget. Is the president willing to sign a continuing resolution that is not deficit neutral or deficit reducing? For instance,
Sign a continuing resolution?
Yeah. For instance, a continuing resolution that would increase the deficit.
I have not seen a score on anything that's come out, and I think we'll have to wait and see what the final.
You're not ruling that one way.
I'm not at this point.
And following up on Jordan's question, the president talked a lot about, has not been shy about criticizing his predecessors for some of their missteps from both parties, and also hasn't, has made a point of often bucking convention. So why not take this moment to label the killing of 1.5 million Armenians a genocide?
I think, again, as I noted to Jordan, the statement that the president put out is consistent with the last several administrations. I understand that, but there is it is perfectly in keeping with the language that's been used over and over again. John. You had your hand up. Yeah.
Sorry, I was writing.
Well, you had your hand up.
Would you agree with the assessment that some within the administration have that a vote on health care this week is very, very unlikely?
I think the vote is going to get scheduled when Speaker Ryan and Leader McCarthy and Congressman Scalise determine that they have the votes and they feel confident. I'm not. I think we've been very clear. The president made it clear on Friday when he was walking back over from the Treasury Department that if it happens and we have the votes this week, great. If it's next week or the week after, but I think we want to make sure that we've got the votes and we're headed in the right direction before putting some kind of artificial deadline.
But would you think that this week is unlikely?
I think that whenever the Speaker and the leadership over in the House tell us that they feel confident that they have the votes, then we would encourage them to move forward. I mean, I hate to, I'm not trying to not answer the question, but I think that's the answer. It comes down to when they feel as though they've got the commitments to push the bill forward.
Well, there was a push to try to get something on the legislative scoreboard by the 100th day. Does it look like that now will not happen?
As I said, we have been very clear from here, and I think the president has been very clear in his comments that that our goal is to get it done and get it done right and get it done to make sure that we have the votes. I think there have been I've read some background quotes and sources about when it wants to, but we've been very clear publicly about when we want to get that done. Kelly.
The president's been very clear that Judge Gorsuch, now Justice Gorsuch, is a big part of his first 100 days accomplishments. And the White House, in the rollout about the 100 days, said there would be a dinner with the president and all the justices of the Supreme Court. Now that is off the list. Is the dinner not happening, or is it not publicly being talked about because it's wrapped up in the politics of the 100
No, I think that
days?
we've moved some things around on the president's schedule this week, but we hope to have something at some point.
Unfortunate to sort of sweep up the high court into the politics of 100 days.
No, I think that having a relationship and a meeting with the Supreme Court at some point would be a great idea, and it's something that we hope to have on the schedule at some point soon. Caitlin.
Can you explain the president's change of thought on DACA?
I think he's been consistent about two things. One, that he's had a heart. He wants to make sure that he does what's in the interest of children in particular. But secondly, I think the president's priorities since he took office have been very clear that the focus would be on folks who presented a danger to public safety. And that's what it's been. And that's where it continues to be. And I think he is someone who understands the issue and the priorities that need to get laid out by this country. And so everything that he has done has been consistent with what he has said from the get-go. Jonathan.
I understand that he said that the criminals would leave first, but last August he said that DACA defied federal law and was illegal. So does he still think it's illegal?
I understand, and I think that his comments that he made last week, that he understands that in a lot of cases this involves families and small children who've been here, and he has a heart. We're going to work through the immigration. I understand. What I'm trying to do is answer the question that I think the president wants to make sure that he addresses the issue of illegal immigration and all of its components in terms of visa reform, border security, the wall, all of these things in a system of priorities. And right now, the priority is to make sure that the folks who present a public safety concern to the United States and to our citizens are dealt with first. And that's what he's happened. He's also very pleased that through his action and his vision for how he wants to see to move forward on this, sees a huge drop of illegal border crossing. That is a big accomplishment for this presidency, and it's something that we're obviously very proud of.
Border crossing is a big thing, but amnesty is a big
I understand
part,
that.
'cause he-
I just walked through the question. Jonathan.
Sean, how confident are you that there will not be a shutdown? Can you, from that podium, guarantee that there will not be a government shutdown?
I can't guarantee,
How close can you get?
but I think that the work that Director Mulvaney and others have made in these negotiations has been very positive. They feel very confident that won't happen.
So he won't insist that his priorities get funded on the border, the wall, increased security.
That's not what I said. I said that I think
Is he willing to shut down the government?
No. It's not. Look, they are currently negotiating. We feel very confident that they understand the president's priorities and that we'll come to an agreement by the end of Friday.
And on the 100 days, if I can just follow up, the contract with the American voter that the president signed included 10 pieces of legislation. Right now, he's 0 for 10. Only one of those has actually been introduced.
Right. And I think that we're going to continue to work with Congress. As he says in that document, I will work with Congress to achieve these things. We are going to continue to work with Congress to achieve those.
But why have 9 of them not even been introduced?
I think when you look at what he has done in terms of Supreme Court justice, the executive orders, the number of legislation, there's a lot that has gotten done. I don't think anyone, I remember very clearly the first few weeks and still to some extent, the comments that got made about the pace that we were keeping, and we have kept. The president has been extremely busy, and I think when you recognize the amount of issues that he's tackled, the amount of progress that he's made, it is very significant, and we will continue to present all of that throughout the week. But again, as I said to Major, I think you can look at a few of these areas and nitpick a couple of them, but I think overall, he has signed a record number of executive orders. He has rolled back regulatory reforms. No, I understand that, but right.
To take action.
But I don't think there's any question that the president has done a significant amount for the American people on the issues that he has put forward during the campaign.
Just to be clear, you're not
Hold
describing the
on,
wall
Jim,
and healthcare
Jim.
as nitpicking.
Jim.
Are you?
No, I'm not. Neither of the. No, I'm not. Those pieces are not small. But I'm saying in terms of overall what he has accomplished has been unbelievably significant. When you talk about all of the other areas, the regulatory relief, the efforts that he's made on immigration, on trade, all of those issues. And again, what I'm trying to say is when you look at everything that he's done and the amount that he's accomplished in these first 100 days, I think you can go back and find an area, one or two, and say, okay, well, he didn't do this. But I think you have to look at it in totality of what he actually did get done.
Sean,
Jim.
on the wall, why is there even a discussion about shutting down the government over paying for the wall? Isn't Mexico supposed to pay for the wall?
Well, I think, Jim, the president has made very clear that initially we needed to get the funding going, and there's be several mechanisms to make sure that happens. That funding piece will happen in due time.
But
Alexis.
that is a promise that the
I understand
president made
that.
during the campaign.
It
time
is-
and
no,
again,
no, but he also
that
said-
Mexico would pay for the wall.
Right.
And now we're having a discussion that the
No,
government
we-
might shut down
No, no,
over
we-
the wall.
Who's
going to pay?
Right. So a couple things. One, as I pointed out to Jonathan, we feel very confident the government's not going to shut down. Number two is I think the president has been very clear in the past about the fact that, and this is not a new thing, he talked about this, that in order to get the ball rolling on border security and the wall, that he was going to have to use the current appropriations process, but he would make sure that that promise would be kept as far as the payment of it.
And just a real quick follow-up. If border crossings are down, and that's a talking point that the White House uses time again, is the wall even necessary?
Absolutely. The wall it does several things.
How can the border crossings be down?
Because
the
I think-
president's saying, well, we're going to have all these drugs flowing in if we don't have a wall.
Because you can't, just because you have a couple good months in a year, I think you want to make sure that you take prudent long-term steps. I mean, so the president is going to fulfill, and frankly, it's a promise that he made to the American people. I think if you're coming in from our southern border, he has taken a lot of steps so far that has deterred border crossing. But this is a permanent step that will extend beyond his presidency. 8 years from now, the next president will have that wall in place to make sure that it doesn't continue. So that
Mexico's going to pay for it.
That's right. Thank you, Alexis.
Sean, this might relate to Jim's question too, but on Wednesday, I have two questions. On Wednesday, when we see the outline that Secretary Mnuchin was just describing, will the president help aim Congress toward his decision about whether the border adjustment tax is the right idea? And also related to that, whether the pay-fors for the wall that might be of interest to lawmakers will become evident as part of the outline of what he'd like to do in terms of taxes.
Right. Well, I don't mean to evade that, but I think there's a reason he chose. We're waiting till Wednesday to have the details that he wants to share out. I'm not gonna. We got a couple days before that happens, so I'm gonna have to ask you to wait 48 hours.
Can you say whether we will have a generally better
I'm gonna.
idea?
I can tell you.
Will we have a generally better idea of where he?
I think you'll have a better idea of where the president stands on tax reform and what he wants to accomplish. Yes,
okay.
John.
Wait. I want to follow up.
Okay.
When you were just describing, and Secretary Mnuchin was describing, achieving an economic growth of 3% or higher, which is slightly lower than what the president talked about in the campaign, which was a very ambitious goal of 4%. I'm just trying to figure out, what is the timeline for that? Is the president thinking he would like to achieve 3% or higher in his first term because of the headwinds that were, obviously the United States is facing abroad? I mean, that's a very ambitious goal still, 3%.
Right. Well, and I think that he has taken a lot of steps, not just on the tax side, but on the regulatory side as well, that I think are clearly already paying dividends. In terms of we've talked about this before, manufacturing come back and jobs come back, and I think there's going to be a renewed commitment of manufacturers, American companies, to bring back jobs, to grow, to hire, to expand here in the United States. And so I think that growth will precede the president's actions, both on the tax front and on the regulatory side. John.
Thanks a lot, Sean. As you know, the first go around at replacing Obamacare was not successful. Since then, are you any closer to getting 218 votes in the House to pass a replacement for the Affordable Care Act?
Yes.
And very good.
Got a number?
And elaborate a little bit more than yes.
Well, first of all, we only need 216. You're making it a little tougher on us right now. But I do think that we have seen progress with members in terms of some of the changes that have been made to make it a stronger bill. But we're getting close. And as I mentioned at the outset, when I think the president feels confident that or when the leadership of the House tells them that they feel confident that they have the votes, then I'm sure they'll call a vote, but that's up to them to decide.
And a separate one, obviously a different topic, and that's the election over the weekend in France.
Yeah.
Any comment on the results that came out of France over the weekend? Would the president be satisfied with either alternative, Macron or Le Pen?
Yeah, obviously it's up to the people of France to decide who their next leader are, and we respect the decision that they make in May. So our job is to work with whomever the French people choose. Anita.
Two questions. One, on the budget, the spending plan, what is the president doing? I understand McMulvaney and others are doing things. Is he calling members? I don't see anything on his schedule for this week. Are members coming over? What is his?
As needed, he'll be involved. I think the legislative team has been giving him updates, and as he's needed. He has talked to members, of course. I mean, I just mentioned he's having dinner tonight with Senator McCain and Senator Graham. He's had lots of discussions with members at various times. We're not at a position now where he is actively engaging on the way he was at, say, the end of healthcare. I think as his team tells him that needs phone calls, but he is actively monitoring and being given updates by the senior team that is working with him.
Talking about his priorities, I would like you to include.
I think his priorities have been crystal clear. I mean, remember, it's starting in the first week of March. Director Mulvaney engaged with appropriators on the House side, and I'm not sure when he started with. So this has been an ongoing discussion now, almost for 8 weeks, with the senior team here and appropriators in the House in particular.
Okay, and then on the second issue, on the 100 days, if as someone mentioned, the president tweeted that it was a ridiculous timetable or whatever. Why is the White House doing so much this week? You have indicated that all these activities this week, from hearing from different people, are because of the 100 days. Why do this 100-day push if it's a ridiculous amount?
I think we've gotten a fairly decent amount of inquiries from you and your colleagues, and so in order to answer those inquiries, Yeah, well, we're givers. I don't think there's anyone in this room that hasn't lodged a request to say we're writing a story on the 100-day mark. We're doing this on the 100-day mark, and so we want to make sure that we answer your questions as truthfully as possible and as thoroughly and comprehensively. So we will have to fulfill all of these requests that are coming in from you and your colleagues. But I also think that we are very proud, and the president's very proud of what he's been able to accomplish in the first 100 days. And, as we sprint towards these final 100 days, there's two things. One, I think because of the inquiries that we've had, we want to make sure we take an opportunity to make sure that people understand how much he's done in all the different areas. But we also want to start talking about the next 100 days and what else is left to be done and how much, how we're going to continue to work hard to get all of that done. But there's a lot that has been accomplished, and I think it's appropriate to comment and to share with the American people all of the things that he has done to fulfill the pledges that he made to the American people.
Clarify, are we going to hear prior to the rally on Saturday, are we going to hear directly from him? There was some talk of a press conference.
Yeah, I'll have further updates on the schedule going forward on
Maybe not.
Huh?
The press conference?
No, I will have we're working out some scheduling issues for the rest of the week, and I'll make sure I give you an update as we move forward. Kristen.
Thanks, Sean. I just want to circle back on healthcare, because at the top of the president's list of agenda items for the first 100 days was repealing and replacing Obamacare. So does the president expect to see a vote on healthcare this week?
Well, I'm sure. Look, he'd love to do it. If the speaker and the majority leader and the whip come and tell him that they've got the votes, then we'd love to do it. I think his goal isn't to fit it into a finite timetable, as he mentioned on Friday. If it happens this week, that's great. If it happens next week, that's great too. The goal is to get it done and get it done right. And so we're not going to jam it through just for the sake of it.
So he's concerned about potentially rushing it through. I hear what
No,
you're saying. He
he-
doesn't want
right.
it to happen this week just to meet that.
Exactly.
Okay. Let me ask you about tax reform. I know you don't want to get ahead of the announcement on Wednesday.
Thank you.
But there's a sense that it is more realistic to pursue targeted tax cuts as opposed to broad tax reform.
Right.
Will we on Wednesday see a proposal for targeted tax cuts?
Well, as you stated in your question, I'll let the president and the team speak on Wednesday with respect to what they're going to outline, but I'm not going to get ahead.
Does the president think that it's realistic to do broad tax reform without having replaced Obama?
I think that the president said he's going to make there's a lot of things that are possible, but let's let the president. He made a commitment to get it out on Wednesday, so let's be patient and wait till Wednesday.
And just one more.
Of course.
Is there a plan for infrastructure reform in the works? Will we get that?
That's another thing that's on the list, but I think we seem to have our hands full right now with healthcare and tax reform. It's obviously still committed to seeing infrastructure, something he's talked about a lot in terms of roads and bridges and rebuilding things. But let's get these first two things moving. But I think you're going to see a continued commitment to infrastructure as well.
One of the things that could potentially have bipartisan
I
support.
think-
Is there an urgency to get infrastructure reform passed?
So either we're doing too much or we're not doing enough. But I think, look, he has made it very clear that is a priority of his. As you point out, it's something that I think both sides of the aisle and both chambers probably agree on. There's a public-private partnership that could really benefit our infrastructure in terms of the financing piece of this. We'll have further details on that moving forward, though. Thank you guys very much. I'll see you tomorrow. Have a great Monday.
All right, guys, if you're joining us, that was Sean Spicer for the daily White House press briefing. Went a little longer than I expected, I think, but you heard him talk about how he's confident that a government shutdown will not happen. Of course, more on that, and as it progresses this week, our reporter Tom Fitzgerald is on that story this week. Now you see some of the reporters they're setting up for their live shots. He also said a little more on how Republicans are getting closer, how Congress is getting closer to passing a replacement for the Affordable Care Act. So we commented on that a little bit. And also you heard him at the top of the briefing. I'm going to bring you back into our newsroom here. You heard him mention how President Trump met in the Oval Office with Ivanka Trump this morning and a NASA astronaut to call up to the International Space Station and congratulate Peggy Whitson. She's the NASA astronaut who has spent 534 consecutive days in space. That is a record for any U.S. astronaut. So we're going to go back to that video because I pulled it from earlier this morning. Kind of interesting to see this call. And that will end our show today. We want to thank you for watching. So check out this video here. Earlier in the Oval Office, President Trump calling up to the International Space Station.
This is Houston. Are you ready for the event?
Yes, we're ready for the event.
White House, this is Mission Control, Houston. Please call station for a voice check.
Do you hear me?
Yes, sir. We have you loud and clear.
Well, that's what we like. Great American equipment that works. And this isn't easy. I want to say it's very exciting to be here today. Very, very exciting. And to speak to you live with 3 brave American astronauts. These are our finest. These are great, great Americans, great people. 2 join us from orbit aboard the International Space Station. Commander Peggy Whitson and Colonel Jack Fisher. And Peggy Whitson has been setting records, so we're going to talk about that very soon. I'm here in the Oval Office along with my daughter Ivanka and astronaut Kate Rubins, who recently returned from space and from the space station. Together we are being joined by students all across America, thousands and thousands of students who are learning. They're learning about space, learning about a lot of other things. And they're watching this conversation from the classroom. And all over, we have astronauts and we have everybody. We're flying right now 17,000 miles per hour. That's about as fast as I've ever heard. I wouldn't want to be flying 17,000 miles an hour, but that's what you do. Peggy, Jack, and Kate, I know that America's students are thrilled to hear from you. But first, I want to say that this is a very special day in the glorious history of American space flight. Today, Commander Whitson, you have broken the record for the most total time spent in space by an American astronaut, 534 days and counting. That's an incredible record to break. And on behalf of our nation and, frankly, on behalf of the world, I'd like to congratulate you. That is really something. And I'd like to know, how does it feel to have broken such a big and important record?
Well, it's actually a huge honor to break a record like this, but it's an honor for me basically to be representing all the folks at NASA who make this space flight possible and who make me setting this record feasible. And so it's a very exciting time to be at NASA. We're all very much looking forward, as directed by your new NASA bill. We're excited about the missions to Mars in the 2030s. And so we're actually physically have hardware on the ground that's being built for the SLS rocket that's going to take us there. And of course, the hardware being built now is going to be for the test flights that will eventually get us there. But it's a very exciting time, and I'm so proud of the team.
Great. And what are we learning from having you spending your time up there? I know so much research is done. I'm getting a glimpse of some of it right here in the Oval Office. What are we learning by being in space?
Well, I think probably the International Space Station is providing a key bridge from us doing living on Earth to going somewhere into deep space. So on those Mars missions, we need to better understand how microgravity is really affecting our body, and we need to understand it in great detail. So many of the studies are looking at the human body. We're also looking at things that involve operations of a space vehicle on these long-duration missions, and the technological advancements that will be required. For instance, on a multi-year Mars mission, we're going to need to be able to close the life support system. And that means we, right now, for instance, are taking solar power that we collect and using it to break apart water into oxygen and hydrogen. The oxygen we breathe, of course, we use the hydrogen, combine it back with the CO2 that we take out of the air and make more water. But water is such a precious resource up here that we also are cleaning up our urine and making it drinkable. And it's really not as bad as it sounds.
Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear that. Better you than me. I will say, Colonel Fisher, you just arrived. And how was your trip? Complicated, easy? How did it go?
Oh, sir, it was awesome. It made even my beloved F-22 feel a little bit underpowered. It was, I launched in a Russian vehicle with my Russian friend, Fyodor Yurchikin, from Kazakhstan. Got the immediate perspective change as we got to orbit, and I saw that frail, thin blue line of life around the Earth. 6 hours later, we're docked to the station. The next day, I install an experiment in the Japanese module that's going to be looking at new drugs and how we can make those drugs for muscular dystrophy, Alzheimer's, multi-drug resistant bacteria, all sorts of things. A couple hours later, I watched our crewmate Thomas Pesquet, a Frenchman, drive a Canadian robotic arm to capture a spaceship from Virginia carrying 3.5 tons of cargo and science that's going to keep us busy for the next few months, and dock that to the station. Sir, it's amazing. Oh, and then, now I'm talking to the President of the United States while hanging from a wall. It's amazing. The International Space Station is by far the best example of international cooperation and what we can do when we work together in the history of humanity. And I am so proud to be a part of it. And it's also just cool. Like yesterday, I had, well, there you go. There's our resident space ninja doing the gravity demonstration. And yesterday morning, I had my coffee in floaty ball form, and sir, it was delicious. So it's awesome.
Tell me, Mars, what do you see a timing for actually sending humans to Mars? Is there a schedule, and when would you see that happening?
Well, I think as your bill directed, it'll be approximately in the 2030s. As I mentioned, we actually are building hardware to test the new heavy launch vehicle, and this vehicle will take us further than we've ever been away from this planet. So, unfortunately, spaceflight takes a lot of time and money, so getting there will require some international cooperation to get it to be a planet-wide approach in order to make it successful, just because it is a very expensive endeavor, but it is so worthwhile doing.
Well, we want to try and do it during my first term, or at worst during my second term, so we'll have to speed that up a little bit, okay?
We'll do our best.
You will, and I have great respect for you folks. It's amazing what you do, and I just want to introduce another great one. Kate Rubins is with us today, and she has been so impressive in research and so many other things having to do with NASA. And Kate, I understand you're the first person to sequence DNA in space. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so that was actually just this last summer, and it's a real example of what we can do with technology and innovation. We've gotten a sequencer down to the size of your cell phone, and we were actually able to fly that on board the space station and sequence DNA. It's not just the technology demonstration, but we can actually use that to do things like detect microbes on the space station, look at astronaut health. We can easily use that in Earth-based settings too to look for disease outbreaks and to do rural health care as well.
That's fantastic. That is really great. I saw some of the work and it's incredible. You know, I've been dealing with politicians so much. I'm so much more impressed with these people. You have no idea. Now, speaking of another impressive person, Ivanka, you've been very much interested in this program. Tell us something about it.
Hi, Dr. Whitson. First of all, congratulations on your incredible milestone today. You may know that my father recently signed the Inspire Women Act to encourage female participation in STEM fields across all aerospace areas and really with a focus on NASA. So encouraging women and girls to pursue STEM careers is a major priority for this administration. And today we are sitting with an amazing example of that, Dr. Rubens, and you, Dr. Whitson. So I would love to hear from you. What was the impetus for you to get involved in the sciences?
Yeah, so when I was around 15, I actually went to a conference.
Actually,
And that was very inspiring for me. It was sort of the beginning of recombinant DNA and understanding biology. And so just that exposure to scientists and the kinds of things that you can do with science and technology innovation.
Amazing. Dr. Whitson?
For me, it was actually the Apollo program was my inspiration, and that was when it became a dream to become an astronaut. But I don't really think it became a goal until I graduated from high school when the first female astronauts were selected. And seeing those role models, and with the encouragement of my parents and various mentors in college and graduate school, and when I started working at Rice, that's what made it possible, I think, to become an astronaut. And it took me a lot longer to become an astronaut than I ever really wanted it to take, but I do think I'm better at my job because of the journey.
You're an incredible inspiration to us all. So I would also like to ask you one more question. I'm incredibly curious, as I'm sure all the students across the country are, to know what a day in the life in space is like. Could you share what a typical day looks like, what the challenges are, just any special moments?
Well, a typical day, we wake up and look at the messages from the ground because we have a huge ground team that's working overnight to prepare, changes or the details of the tests that we're going to be performing over the course of the day. So first thing I do is check out that, see what's changed. But on any given day, it can be so dramatically different. On one day, we might be focusing on science. On another day, we might be repairing the carbon dioxide removal system. On another day, soon Jack and I are going to do a spacewalk. We talked about last Saturday, we did robotics operations. I love the diversity of the different activities that we do. Plus, we have over 200 investigations ongoing on board the space station, and I just think that's a phenomenal part of the day. Of course, there's also just the living and on board the space station. It's such a unique and novel environment, nothing that we're used to on the ground. And it's so special to just be in zero gravity. But Jack's the new guy here, and I think he can probably give you a better perspective on what that's like. It's still on.
Well, I everything here, my dad always said that if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. And we work really hard up here, but it's not really work. It's just fun. It's like playing Fort almost, only you're changing the world while you do it. And then on the off time, the other morning I was working out, and on our machine that we work out on, right below it is the cupola window. And so when you're on the kind of device where you do crunches, every time you come up, you see out the window. And it's awesome because you kind of go crunch. Oh my gosh, that's beautiful. I got to do that again. Crunch. Oh my gosh, that's beautiful. It's awesome. Everything we do here is fun, and it feels so great to know that we're making a difference on the ground and for the future of humanity as well. So it's an incredible job.
You're making a great difference, I have to say. And this is a very exciting time for our country, and you see what's happening with our country in terms of jobs, in terms of business, and there's such excitement and such enthusiasm. Many American entrepreneurs are racing into space. I have many friends that are so excited about space, they want to get involved in space from the standpoint of entrepreneurship and business. Tell us about the opportunities that could exist for the next generation of scientists and engineers. Is that something that you think a student, because you have so many students, hundreds of thousands watching, is that something that you think that students should be focusing, or should they be thinking about other subjects? What do you think are the opportunities for young students wanting to be involved in space?
Sir, absolutely. I think that this is probably the most exciting time in space exploration, certainly in my lifetime. We're about to just have an explosion of activity. There is so much involvement on the space station with commercial industries and commercial partners. We have an entire program to manage the science. NASA has done a wonderful job of seeding a new industry with the commercial crew program and the commercial cargo program so that we can build the infrastructure we need for the future exploration. One thing I love about American entrepreneurs is once you get them going, you better stand out of their way because they're going to start trucking. And we're about to that point. NASA is taking on that expensive, hard, complex task of going further and deeper into space with the wonderful new rocket Space Launch System and Orion. And then as soon as we break open that door, this incredible infrastructure that we've been building is going to be right there to pick up the baton and continue into the stars. I would say to all the students that are watching, the time to get excited is now. If you aren't studying science and math, you might want to think about that because our future in the stars starts now, and you can be a part of that if, like Dr. Whitson, you can find that passion and work really hard, and we're gonna find a permanent foothold in the stars for humanity if you do that.
Well, thank you. So well said. And I have to say there's tremendous military application in space. We're rebuilding our military like never before. We're ordering equipment, and we're going to have the strongest military that we've ever had, the strongest military that the world has ever seen, and there's been no time where we need it more. And I'm sure that every student watching wants to know what is next for Americans in space. I'm very proud that I just signed a bill committing NASA to the aim of sending American astronauts to Mars. So we'll do that. I think we'll do it a lot sooner than we're even thinking. So which one of you is ready to go to Mars? Are you ready? And I think you're ready. I know you're ready, right? We just discussed that. She'd like to go to Mars very quickly. Who's ready to go to Mars up there?
We are absolutely ready to go to Mars. It's going to be a fantastic journey getting there and very exciting times. And all of us would be happy to go. But I want all the young people out there to recognize that the real steps are going to be taken in a few years. And so by studying math, science, engineering, any kind of technology, you're going to have a part in that. And that'll be very exciting.
I just want to thank you very much. And Dr. Whitson, I just, congratulations. Amazing. What an amazing thing that you've done. Everybody here, I know your family, but everybody here is incredibly proud of the record you just broke. I hope that every young American watching today finds in your example a reason to love space and think about space, because many great things are going to come out, tremendous discoveries in medicine and so many other fields. So thank you very much. I want to say God bless you. God bless America. We are very, very proud of you and very proud of your bravery. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
All right, guys. So really cool conversation from earlier this morning with the president and the astronauts up in the International Space Station. That was earlier this morning from the Oval Office. You saw the president himself and Ivanka Trump and another astronaut along with them there having that conversation. So a lot of good advice for young people out there watching as well. We're going to leave you today. I want to thank you so much for watching today's show and for joining us for all the live and breaking events from the Capitol and across the nation and the world. We're going to leave you with some aerial footage out of Los Angeles. This is the Armenian March that is happening right now as we speak, and it is commemorating the 102nd anniversary of the 1915 Armenian genocide. Take care, guys. We'll see you the rest of the week.